anak pinatay ang tatay. You know, all these things. And normally, the kids are drug crazed. And we see the effects of drugs. And me and my wife, we were saying, because we read that, you know, I haven't tried it, but shabu, or whatever, cocaine, they say, you try it once, you're hooked. I don't want to ask anyone who wants to verify that. But take my word, that's what I read. You try it once, and you're hooked for life. And I was telling my wife, you know what? That thing, that drugs, is a product straight from hell. It ruins the mind, it ruins the soul, it destroys life. A person becomes not effective. They say people who are high in drugs, I just saw this testimony. He would, whenever he's in drugs, he really thinks that people does not notice. He acts normal, say, yeah, wala, he'll take drugs, go to a party, and he'll say, no one notices na, you know, I took drugs. But everybody's, yeah, it's only him who thinks he's okay. But everybody around, it's like body odor, right? You don't know you have it. But the whole world knows that, ano yan, tumira yan, or he's high on drugs. And I say, yeah, it's a product straight from hell. Even prostitution, pornography, pedophilia. The very image and likeness of God was being lambasted for the fantasy of people. And the sad thing there is that a lot of pastors, they fall on this. What a schemy way. What an adversary that we have, that's able to pull down people, pull down pastors. And in some churches, when the pastor falls, the congregation follows. And the Bible tells us that we are to resist this adversary. In fact, society is helping. Society is up in arms against this adversary. People nowadays comes up with a documentary about human trafficking pertaining to prostitution, and they try to fight it. People are up in arms against drug, and there's always a drug war going on. People are also, society is also up in arms against alcoholism, and there's the AAA, Alcohol Anonymous, something. And society is helping and trying to help people combat this adversary. But if you think of it, even abortion, what a devilish thing. They say that unless the kid is given birth, there's still no life. Yet they go to Mars, they're looking for any small germ, any small bacteria that moves, and they say, there's life on Mars. There's life on that planet. Why? There's bacteria there. Yet, if there's a baby in the tummy with head, eyes, mouth, hands, moving with a heartbeat, they say what? There's no life. And they call murder freedom of choice. That's murdering. And honestly, there's more murders going on in abortion than wars. And society is up in arms against such. And again, I say this is the scheme of our adversary. But I see a problem. Society is so focused on fighting the battle. And in some cases, they might think that they're winning in that battle. Maybe in some places, AIDS are going down, crime rate is going down, People using drugs is going down. Well, if Duterte wins, we know people using drugs will go to sleep. But there's something dangerous. There's something scary. Because I think nobody notices the war. Everybody is focusing on the battle. But few people realize that there's a war going on. That there's a war that exists. It's like having cancer. Some people, they have cancer, but they don't realize that they have cancer until it's too late. And when they discover it, it's really too late. Society has a cancer. Worse is that some people, even though they know that this adversary exists, they don't consider that adversary. They don't consider him as an adversary. They consider him as a comrade. Not that I'm at war with him. In fact, Bob, I'm at peace. And we say that the devil is an adversary of ours. And a good one at that. And we see the consequences of all the violence, of all the hatred, of all the murders, of all the crimes, of all the tortures, of all the war. And we say, wow, he's a good adversary. Yet, we forget the ultimate, the formidable, the supreme, the paramount, the prime adversary of mankind, who no one thinks is an adversary. The one that towers above all adversaries, all enemies, all opponents. This adversary has our very existence on the line. He is the most formidable opponent that you will ever have. He's the most formidable. Not only that, he's the most hostile. He is the only one that threatens your own being. And as the title of this message goes, the most formidable adversary that mankind has is God Almighty. And a lot of people are shocked when they hear that. What? They have a hard time grasping their minds in the truth that the most paramount adversary that we have is God Almighty. Because people say, isn't God gentle? Isn't God kind? Isn't God good? And so for some people, they think as God, the awe of God's like grandparents. They're nice, they're patient, they're cuddly. But that is not how the New Testament describes the relationship of man and God. The relationship of man and God is defined by estrangement, alienation, and enmity. The Bible tells us that in James and Romans that we are hostile against God. That we are not friends with God. Our relationship with God, the relationship of mankind, is not anchored, defined by peace. The relationship of mankind with God is defined by estrangement and alienation. That's why one of the central truths of the Bible is what? The word reconciliation. Right? Why was Christ called a mediator? The mediator between God and man. If there was no animosity, if there was no fighting, if there was no alienation, why was there a need to get a mediator? There was a need. Because man is an enemy of God. Look at Matthew. Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. It says, "Do not fear those who kill the body, but unable to kill the soul. But rather fear him who's able to destroy both soul and body in hell." That's why he's our most formidable adversary. Excuse me now. The devil, yes, he can wreck our life here on earth. That's the worst he can do. Make us suffer. For what? 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years? But God, fear him, who could put your soul in hell for all eternity. Again, we have a problem because mankind never saw God as an enemy. Believers or non-believers, they always saw God as part of their team. Thus, they really find no need for a mediator. That Christ died needlessly. The mere fact that Christ had to die because he had to mediate. He had to bring both parties back to peace. Part of the problems are preachers. We need, the problem with the concept of peace is that people nowadays, preachers, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about that man is in a war with God Almighty. That there is a need for peace. Because we are at war. We are rebellious. We have run away. And we made no qualms about it. Another concern also is that a lot of preachers, a lot of pastors, a lot of teachers are intimidated by fellow men. Nowadays, preachers, they rather be pleasers of man than fearers of God. They're afraid to offend. They're afraid to be the bearers of bad news. They don't want to be the bearer of a bad news to the king, to the president. Normally, bearer of bad news, siya yung nasasabun eh. And they say, don't kill the messenger. No one wants to be the bearer of bad news. You don't want to be in the bad side of the king, the bad side of the president. And for some churches, or for some pastors, or some preachers, there's a certain pressure that they have in maintaining the church size. They're afraid to offend because some of the church members might leave the church because this pastor is talking about something very offensive. And when church member leaves, guess what? The tithing level falls, and that's something that pastors don't want to happen. They don't want to ruffle the feathers of its congregation. They don't want to rattle the cages. Status quo lang. My son Bambino asked me a couple of weeks ago, so Daddy, what's a phone?